Stanford winning the tip.
Deflection for UCLA. It's something you and I've talked about that you actually noticed, Ted, that UCLA, not great defensively, but what they are good at is getting in passing lanes, stealing the ball. They're second in the country in steals per game.
Yeah, different kind of defense, right?
Yeah, they're not up in your face, great on ball guys, but they're good at anticipating passes and taking them away, like right there.
There it is. They're
right
averaging 10.6 steals a game coming in. As Don said, second in the nation. And now Anderson. Don, I was talking about this earlier today. We were here a lot last year, and I remember the first game, and it was a few into the season when Anderson made a three, and everybody went, wow.
Yeah. Well, the sign of a guy getting better is when they don't hesitate and they just go, like on that first play for Kyle. He just comes off, that high ball screen and raises up with no hesitation. And I think that's the difference and a sign that he's way more confident shooting the ball. I'm surprised that they're starting Hustis on Anderson. I thought that you would see Anthony Brown to start. But Hustis, a versatile guy that can guard multiple positions. That's why I think he'll play at the next level because of his ability and athleticism to guard multiple people.
And Josh Hustis, after the UCLA turnover, Josh Hustis had a real good weekend at Maples last weekend. He had a struggling game in a big road win for Stanford at Oregon, but he rebounded after cutting a healthy head of hair.
Yeah. I noticed that when I came in here tonight that I had to take a second glance. I'm used to seeing the big hair on Josh.
Oh, look at Anderson. Wow, that was well done, and somehow that ball carried all around the rim and didn't go in.
But that play right there is why I'm surprised that Brown isn't on him. I think that Kyle Anderson can take Hustis off the dribble.
And there's Powell on the double. Gets UCLA's second steal of the first 2 minutes. Well, the Bruins are setting themselves up, and the one storyline that they took back here from their road trip was field goal percentage. They've had a 4-game tough run here of shooting.
Well, I think teams are more ready for them now. It was really easy in the non-con for them offensively, and I think teams are chopping up the game a little bit. They're not sending as many to the board as I mentioned, so they're not getting easy looks in transition. They're actually having to execute, and I think they've been going a little bit early in the clock. Too much. Make the defense move side to side, get better looks at it.
Well, Adams got his look, and that's a left alone tip for David Ware.
Well, he can do that, and both the Ware's numbers are down this year, but I think that's more due to the emergence of Zach LaVine. Tony Parker's more of a factor this year.
And on the wing, Brown finally gets Stanford going.
He is such a big deal for them this year. I mentioned he's missed all but 4 games last year. He's so versatile. He shoots it at a high percentage, and he impacts the game a great deal for Stanford.
4 experienced starters that are real good players in this conference, and Powell, Hustis, Randall, and Brown. Nastich, you're seeing as a starter, has developed into a low post guy. The challenge for Stanford is that when they have to go to their bench, injuries have thinned them.
Really have. And the last 3, they've gotten some bench production, 48 points total in the last 3 after really not getting much at all.
And Hustis has a good spot across the floor. So Stanford takes its first lead.
I'm telling you, he could be a first-round pick just based on the fact that he could guard multiple positions and make a corner 3. Andre Robertson last year, Solomon Hill last year. Guys who didn't have gaudy numbers but could guard multiple positions and make a corner 3.
All right. Nastich gets called there for a foul.
This is what I'm talking about for UCLA. Move the ball side to side, make the defense work. You get better looks. I think UCLA, the only play at the rim so far for UCLA has been David Ware's putback. It's been all perimeter shots to start.
And Anderson is knocked down too.
Well, playing off the ball, he did that a lot last year. This year, he's now more on the ball. But if you can shoot it, which he's proven he can do now, they can run him off screens, play him off the ball more.
Well, pass off Nastich's hands. Anderson, here's the UCLA transition. That's what they wanted.
And that's the guy. When he gets out ahead, we saw him at Colorado last Thursday. Started the game for UCLA really well with a couple threes in transition baskets really gave him a jolt early in that game.
If we could have listened to Steve Alford's pregame speech, I think that would have been one of the first points he would have made. Ooh, Stanford answers with another three by Eustace. But Steve Alford's point would have been, there's that, and a turnover, you push the ball that fast, make them pay?
Oh, absolutely. When you got the horses to run, you want to run at every opportunity, and UCLA's got really good athleticism 1 through 5 in this starting group.
Adams with a good kick, and David Ware knocks it.
I guess we're just going to watch a perimeter jump shooting contest tonight. There you go. There's a little something to the rim.
Yeah, there's transition. Stanford back. And now Powell. Can he answer? Yes, he does.
Well,
jump shooting, driving. It's not a defensive start.
Well, I was going to say, is this good, really good offense or just not good defense? I think a little of both here to start. But we've seen in this conference year in and year out, the teams that can dig in and get stops when they need it are the teams that win.
Well, there's a good crash, and Powell sets it up. Ooh, but no finish. How do they call that? A foul. Okay, a foul. I was wondering if it was a goaltend call. It is not. It was a foul that will put Stanford at the line when we come back after a real good 5.5-minute start. Keys to the game, 5.5 in, Don.
Well, there's always more than just one key, but I kind of noticed these. Randall has been a big part of why they've turned it around in the conference, winning their last 3. And then for UCLA, Bryce Alford did not score on the Colorado-Utah road trip, and he's been a big part of that second group that comes in for UCLA. If they're going to contend in this conference, they got to get him back on track.
Well, Randall is part of that experienced Stanford starters, and the more on that, let's check in with Yogi Roth.
Yeah, when you look at Stanford offensively, 95% of their points come from upperclassmen, and Coach Johnny Dawkins talks about how he can trust that team, trust those upperclassmen. We talked about it today in the shoot-around. And for Steve Alford, he was worried about it because he said their execution is so incredible because of their experience, and it's going to be fun to watch if this game gets close late and how those upperclassmen do, fellas.
Yeah, there's such a value for experience in this league. I talk all the time about if you got a veteran point guard, and Randall, now a junior, running the show for the Stanford team. Not only is he leading them in scoring, but he's got to get everyone involved. So experience definitely matters if you're going to contend in this conference.
Eustace at the line. I'm sitting here as Yogi's saying that, and it's hitting me, Don. I don't think, I'll check on this at halftime with Brian Risso of Stanford. I don't think Stanford has had a basketball player leave school before playing 3 years. Lopez has played 3. Jacobson played 3. Josh Childress played 3. I don't believe they've had a player not play at least 3 years before going to the pros.
Stanford now in a 2-3 zone, pushed out a little bit. Stanford not typically a zone team, but like a lot of teams we've covered this year, Ted, everyone seems to be playing zone because of the rule changes.
Tony Parker's first action, he'll get to the line. When we saw Cal playing a bunch of zone Saturday, that's when I knew you were right on.
And last Thursday, Tad Boyle was playing zone against his UCLA team. That's when you know that these rule changes have had an impact on how coaches prepare. You never see Cal or Colorado in a zone until this year. Parker making so much more of an impact this year. 7 points a game, 5 rebounds in only 19 minutes.
But he's holding up, isn't he? He's holding up. I mean, he's been able to stay on the floor. He's giving you almost 20 minutes a game.
Yeah, that's valuable because, Travis Ware started the season hurt with the appendix, and they just need his size and toughness in there. And I don't think really even the numbers are that big of a deal, more as it's the presence and the rim protection and just the space eating in the paint.
So Stanford has gone to the bench for one man. It's Robbie Lemons with the ball. UCLA has gone 3 deep with Zach Levine, Bryce Alford, and Parker.
UCLA in a zone, and they typically, when this second unit comes in, they go to the zone. Kyle Anderson moves down to the 4 spot. Alford runs the show at the top.
And what Stanford, one feature of their conference, 5 games in the conference, they have only averaged 8.8 turnovers a game coming in. That's the fewest by a team in the Pac-12. They've made 4 already tonight.
There you see Parker on the defensive end, the presence he has.
That's going to be a 5th. So UCLA is creating more problems for Stanford's offense than they've experienced in their first 5.
Well, and it's on the road, and we see the difference week in and week out of teams playing on the road versus at home. And the teams that can execute, not turn it over, and get stops are the teams that win on the road.
Adams had a good look. Not going down for Adams. 34% three-point shooter coming in.
Down from last year. And I really believe, Ted, and I said it earlier, if Powell goes in for the easy one, the teams are more aware of him. I think having Shabazz Muhammad on the other side of the floor really opened things up for Jordan last year, and now he's being guarded way more closely.
Good
nice
flash
pass
there. Yep. He flashed to that open foul line spot, and then Adams saw Parker.
Great execution, and that's just having good basketball IQ. And the play wouldn't have happened unless Adams already knew Parker was open before he even caught it.
Anthony Brown. Oh, look at Eustace going big. So Eustace and Powell have each made their presence felt on the offensive glass.
Well, that's the thing, though. There's 2 of them. Usually you don't have 2 6'7", 6'9" guys that are that athletic that you got to worry about. Usually it's just one. So if you worry about Powell, Eustace hurts you and vice versa.
Well, inside Stanford protects. And if we could have heard Johnny Dawkins, there's a nice feed to Adams for the basket. Now, if we could have heard Johnny Dawkins before the game, I think he would have said, if we can get our 2 big guys hitting the offensive glass, we're going to be in great shape.
As I said, though, you got to be careful because if you send people to the board, you don't want UCLA to have numbers going the other way. So it's kind of a fine line. You want to be able to attack the offensive board because UCLA, not a great rebounding team.
Now 2 of the prominent forwards in this conference. Dwight Powell had just done it. Now Eustace adds his putback score for Stanford. Pac-12 headlines, Don, is Arizona continuing longest run in school history as the #1 team.
Yeah, I'm not sure who's going to beat them because every night they come out, they look unbeatable. And last night, USC gets a Pac-12 win. They turn the defense up after not being great. And then Utah won both home games last weekend against UCLA and USC. Couldn't get it done tonight in Tempe, though. Had a big lead and couldn't get it done in Tempe tonight.
Yeah, so there you see with Arizona State's win, with Arizona's win over Colorado tonight, those are updated standings. And again, what we're talking about is the winner of this game is alone in third, and you kind of separate yourself a little bit from the middle bunch.
Well, and UCLA's got a real opportunity. They win tonight, they go to 4-2, then they beat Cal on Sunday. Now they're 5-2 sitting alone in second place.
And one thing that highlights the importance of this weekend, good inbounds play by Stanford, but Lemons can't put it home. But there's Powell. Second time he's picked up a loose ball, and he'll earn a trip to the line. And more on the Pac-12 race. Let's check in with Yogi.
Dawkins, and he really talked about how his team had to play with a big sense of urgency. On the other side, for Steve Alford, he was really talking about the premium of this weekend's games and the urgency they need to have with these huge wins at home, especially with the conference play like you guys just mentioned.
Absolutely, and you know, UCLA sitting in a better spot in terms of RPI and making the NCAA tournament than Stanford. You know, Stanford's RPI 55, strength of schedule 46. So to me, I think they're in as we sit here tonight, but they got some work to do. UCLA RPI 28, strength of schedule 30. So they're in pretty good shape. But I think if you're UCLA, you know, you're thinking we want to finish as high as we can in the conference. Can't worry about what Arizona's doing, but really strengthen our resume for the NCAA tournament. I just don't see Arizona losing 2 conference games. I know it's early, but having watched them as much as I have, I could see them losing 1. I don't know if they're going to lose 2.
Well, one of the road traps they would face, they've already conquered. That's here.
Yeah, and they don't have UCLA at their place.
Right. They'll be Arizona will be in the Bay Area next weekend. They'll be at Stanford first, and then at Cal a week from Saturday. But on the UCLA front, the other issue that Yogi touched on that's so big about this weekend for the Bruins is after they play Cal here Sunday, they will have played 5 of their first 7 conference games here. So you want to be sure you haven't lost your home court. They did fall once here. But they know they have they're going to pay the price for that in February with some road games.
They are. And they almost got Arizona here. And to me, in my mind, UCLA, that was the one game I thought Arizona, listen, they could lose any game, but the one game I thought that Arizona could drop would be the game here, and give them credit. They came in here, won the game in what was a great college basketball game. UCLA losing by 4 there. But that's why I say I just don't think Arizona's going to lose 2. So what are these teams? Are these teams really playing for a conference championship? Because they already have 2 losses, and if UCLA beats Cal on Sunday, they'll have 2 losses.
Parker, good rebound. The long rebound. It took him 2 tries, but he does get it back in.
Yeah, the questionable shot by Levine, but Parker there to clean it up.
Randall up top for Stanford. Randall has not scored a basket yet.
Funny how that works when you're the leading scorer on a team. You don't get that many clean looks when you go on the road.
Steve Alford giving this 5 group a little bit of a run here, letting them stay on the floor. Nice drop step, very nicely done by Parker. That'll be a goaltend and a basket.
How active has he been here early? 4 rebounds already as well. Dump it into him on the post. Whew. Nice spin back to his right shoulder.
I'm not sure. Did we see that move last year?
No, we didn't.
Yeah.
Well, we didn't see him much on the court last year. So we've seen him a lot more on the court this year, and we're seeing a lot more good plays from him.
7 points and 4 rebounds for Parker in about 4 minutes of time. John Gage. And John Gage, well, he can do that. A very good facing shooter, and Gage drills the 3.
That's pretty much what he does. And so inexcusable if you're the UCLA zone not knowing where Gage is and not contesting that hard enough.
Yeah, well, there's the shooter that's having he would really love to knock a 3 down to get his rhythm going. Norman Powell. Gage got stuck. And then Levine forces contact. Foul on Randall of Stanford.
Well, Gage was going to let that transition 3 go, and Alford got out there to contest. And Gage caught up in the air, turned it over. But you see how UCLA, when they get turnovers, how fast they convert. How fast they get from the defensive end to the offensive end. That's what makes them so dangerous and why offensively they've been so efficient this year. But as I said earlier, teams are starting to game plan a little bit better, not let them get in transition as much.
Parker will go to the line here. And I want to ask you about that phrase you just used. And I was looking at, there's a man who's now become well known in the college basketball world. Ken Pomeroy does a lot of advanced statistics that are available on websites, and efficiency is a big part of Ken Pomeroy's studies. And I noticed UCLA's offensive efficiency ranking today was in the 20s nationally. What does that mean? What is, when you say offensive efficiency?
It doesn't take them as many trips or as many shots or as many times to get their points, meaning they value possessions more. They score more per possession than other teams, or than most teams.
Right. Is it coming down to
they
just
shoot out? Well, you shoot a higher percentage. You don't turn it over as much. You know, you're just more efficient. Doesn't take you as much to get what you need to get.
And I think it weighs the value of the 2 versus the 3, I believe, doesn't it?
Yes.
Gage lets it rip. And that's all UCLA. There you saw Stanford did peel back on the long 3. And we're not going to give up transition. They do give up a corner 3, but Powell can't knock it down. Powell is shooting under 20% from the 3 line this year.
Weird, it seems like, as Anderson knocks down the mid-range, it seems like we're talking about guys who have struggled from behind the line, but yet as a team, they're shooting just under 40% from behind the 3-point line.
Alford with a steal in the basket.
Again, turnovers leading to easy offense. Alford down the floor, beats the Stanford defense down, easy deuce.
And that's going to get us a timeout. We're just shy of the official timeout zone.
Well, we talked about it right off the top, how this team, UCLA team, isn't great defensively, but what they are good at is anticipation, getting in passing lanes. See it right there, Bryce Alford in the passing lane, gets the easy bucket. And that may be a big bucket for Bryce Alford after not having scored all weekend last weekend. They're active in the zone. They started the year saying that they needed to play some zone, and their zone has gotten a lot better. Like anything, the more you do it, the better you get at it. And it's been a big weapon for them, especially with this second unit.
You know, we laugh about Mike Montgomery playing. What does it say when a guy from Indiana that played for Bob Knight and Steve Alford is getting this team strong at playing a zone?
Well, the only difference is, and I mentioned it earlier, is because of the rule changes, and you just can't put your hands on anybody anymore, so you're really putting pressure on individuals if you're making them play man defense for 40 minutes without getting in foul trouble.
You saw there a look at what UCLA has done offensively, and they've done it even in conference play. 81 points plus per game in their first 5 in the Pac-12. Powell taking an aggressive play, and the ball just rolls over the back, but UCLA does not secure the rebound, and Houston has it roll off.
On the road, you have to convert those. Powell had a pretty good look at it. Houston, those have to go down if you're going to beat people on their floor.
And then Stanford got a hand on Alford's drive, knocked it free. Powell hit the deck, did not use a timeout to save the possession. Instead, it's a held ball, but it will be Stanford's possession when we come back after the under 8 timeout. Pretty hectic sequence. UCLA in the mid-2000s had one of the great runs, of course, 3 straight trips to the Final Four, and one of those games, one of the greatest tournament games of recent years, played in the Oakland Coliseum, and you'll relive it tonight. UCLA Gonzaga in the Sweet 16.
Gonzaga had them dead to rights in that game. Bob Mute gets that steal, or the finish, put him over the top. That was the Adam Morrison National Player of the Year team.
Well, it was you and I were both there calling the game for different outlets that night, and of course, Farmar and Bob Mute, and that group scored, was the last 11 points or 12, something like that. And of course, the famous scene then of Adam Morrison in tears on the court at the end of the game.
God, he was so good in college, Morrison. Wow.
Well, it was a fabulous NCAA tournament game, obviously fabulous for UCLA. You'll relive it tonight after we're finished on Pac-12 Networks.
Stanford man-to-man this possession. Parker's been everywhere in this first half.
Another held ball. This one will go to UCLA.
He's got 8 points and 4 rebounds in 7 minutes, Tony Parker.
Well, Donna, it's obvious. I mean, this is logical. If you're going to go with an 8-man rotation, the 8 guys have to play. And Tony Parker enabled the fact he can stay on the floor and play these stretches gives Steve Alford the chance to play. He's got a solid 8-man.
Well, and I think it varies game to game. And if you're having a game like Tony Parker is, I'm pretty sure he's going to play more minutes tonight. He's engaged in the game. He's way more active than I've seen him all year. And he's really affecting the game in a positive way.
Boy, the UCLA, that is the 6th steal. I think we hit on that early. 6th steal of the first half.
I mean, you said the number. Over 10 steals a game is a lot for a team. And obviously, if they're second in the country, it is. But they are really good at it. Anticipation.
Yeah, and that I'm intrigued because you hit on this, Don, and you see it again. They just feed Parker. They're going right to the block.
Well, if he's having success on a night like tonight, let's go with it. It's working. And, you know, most basketball players are smart enough to recognize when a guy's got it going or when he's really into the game or when he's, impacting it, and I think the rest of the UCLA team senses it tonight with Tony Parker.
And Johnny Dawkins just made a switch because John Gage was getting beat up a little bit in the post defense. He brought in Grant Verhoeven. Parker goes right at him.
He went right at the double team, too. A second defender came for Stanford. He just went right over the top.
Stanford right now, their starting big man, Stefan Nastic, has 2 fouls. That's why he's out. That's been a problem for Nastic all year.
Did that slip out of Brown's hand, or was he trying to pass it instead of shoot it? No way that was a shot that missed that short.
Loose ball, and Bryce Alford stays with it. An 11-3 UCLA run that is giving them this 5-point lead.
How about this? Houston started the game.
Ooh, how about that?
As Levine with the circus catch and shoot. Houston started the game on Anderson. Now he's checking Zach Levine. Shows you his versatility that we were talking about.
Biggest lead of the first half, 8 points for the Bruins.
Levine's better off the move on the catch and shoot than he is on the standstill, which is rare. Most guys are better standstill catch and shoot guys.
Well, that's a much needed shot. Randall drills his first field goal of the night.
Now they're going to have to get production from him if they're going to win this game. I don't think they have enough offensively, especially coming from the bench, for him not to have an offensive impact.
And Powell just drives through for the layup. And that's the problem that Stanford has as Randall gets into the paint, fouled. So the problem with you lose a guy like Nastich to fouls, they're already thin.
How difficult is that shot by Zach Levine? But he gets so much lift on that jumper that nobody can get to it. And as I mentioned, he's proven throughout the course of this year that he is better moving and catching and shooting than he is with his feet set.
And that's just a seemingly harmless play, but a perfect example of what we talked about. A meaningless, innocent inbounds pass, and UCLA got a hand on the ball. Yep. Creates a turnover and a transition too.
Well, let's give UCLA some credit on that, but I think from the start, Stanford's been kind of sloppy with the ball, with their passes. They've dropped some balls out of bounds. Levine, you see the catch and shoot. About that delivery.
All right, so all 8 Bruins who've played now have scored with that basket by Travis Ware, but we've seen Zach Levine shoot. We've seen him set it up, so let's see Don's scouting report.
Time for the drawing board, Ted. Freakish athleticism's been on display from day one. The length, the ability to glide down the court. Second thing, good shooter. I think he'll improve as a shooter. One thing, like I just mentioned, the catch and shoot on the move versus the standstill. He will get better as a shooter. And then the ceiling. I mean, you see how good he is now. I think his ceiling, he's still got a ways to go as a player, not only becoming a better shooter, feel for the game, shot selection, but the NBA people already really like Zach Levine. And part of it's because they think that as good as he is now, he's still got a ways to go and that he could become really, really good at some point.
Strength. A little upper body strength.
Yeah.
As he matures.
Well, that's for everyone.
Yeah, as he matures, right.
I think more feel for the game. I still think there's some times when shot selection's an issue, driving into traffic. He will get better at that the more he plays, the more he's coached. But you just don't see 6'5" guys with that kind of athleticism that could shoot it, like he does, that play that guard position. But really, it's the end-to-end and the high flying at the rim is what really attracts people.
Oh, that's what Adams wanted. He was going to catch and shoot in the transition. He didn't catch the pass cleanly. The possession comes back to him, and he does make it.
But that's what I said earlier, too. I think UCLA needs to do more of that. You don't need to shoot jumpers early in the clock when you can move the defense side to side and get them later in the clock, maybe even get a cleaner look.
Well, this has been some spurt by UCLA, and now Stanford has to answer these final 3 minutes plus of the half.
Yeah.
UCLA fouled. We're not yet into the bonus. And Johnny Dawkins and his team will have to regroup during this under 4 timeout.
8-26 UCLA. Let's define freakish athleticism. Every play on here is defining freakish athleticism in the open court, at the rim. I mean, it's freakish. And he's always had the lift. Ever since high school I saw him. And he is just scratching the surface as a basketball player. And as I said, I think that's why he has NBA people so excited, because they see the freakish athleticism and they see that he has room to grow as a basketball player. Once he does, you put those two together, probably going to be a pretty good NBA player.
Now that back, or at least the 3 off the bench, contributed to this UCLA run. It's 21-6. And Zach Levine is still on the floor. Parker and Bryce Alford now are sitting.
Yeah,
Travis Ware back.
Well, and that's a great point, Ted, because they only got 6 points from the bench in Utah. And so, you know, if you're going to win, especially on the road, you got to have more bench production than that. We talked about Alford and his struggles on that trip last weekend. But when you only go 8 deep, the 3 coming off got to give you something.
Adams ran, posted up along the baseline. He has 7 in the first half. So again, this is as it is for any team on the road, this is crucial for Stanford. They have to stay close.
Yeah, they got to close this half the right way. Don't let UCLA bust this thing open. It's already 14. See if you can't get it under 10 before halftime.
All right, coming up, Mike Gams got Dan Dickow and Ernie Kent tonight. Coach Kent is in our studio to look at Arizona-Colorado highlights. A recap, Arizona State with a second-half comeback to hold home court.
Coach Kent's probably whining about how his power players didn't have good days today or yesterday.
It'll be the same.
He won last week in a real upset.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah. Beat
I like how you call that a real upset,
yeah,
as opposed to just a minor one.
Stop the presses type of upset.
Now we got a rebound foul here. Called on UCLA. So UCLA is in now, has put Stanford into the bonus. Tony Parker picks up the foul. So again, the State Farm halftime report will come up here. 2 minutes and 5 away.
Well, and you hope that doesn't take away any of the momentum of Tony Parker. He's had such a good first half, 10 points, 5 rebounds. Now he's got the 2 fouls going into halftime on kind of a negative. Hopefully he comes back out with the same mindset in the second half. If you're UCLA, it impacts the game like he did here in this first half.
Now, it happens at different levels. I mean, we see 2 guys. Tony Parker got himself into much better shape for his second year. Josh Eustace, more of a typical Stanford player in that he's evolved and developed over 4 years.
Tell you what's not typical about Eustace. He's probably, unless something weird happens, going to be Stanford's all-time shot block leader at 6'7".
Yeah.
That's pretty impressive. 6'7" guy being the school's all-time block shots leader.
Zach LaVine went solo. Anderson finishes.
Best rebounding guard in the country, Kyle Anderson. Mostly on the defensive board, but he'll sneak in there and get an offensive rebound every once in a while.
Is he really a guard?
He's the point guard. He's the starting point guard on this team.
Kind of blurs the definition, doesn't it?
Well, there's a lot of things that blur definitions in today's game. But I get what you're saying.
I know. I'm laughing because we see this in football. I mean, you look at some of these tight ends, you go, come on, they're not really tight ends anymore. Doesn't change the fact, right? Anderson is a terrific rebounder. And there's a big shot, boy. Just
Huge
beat
shot.
the 35 by Powell.
Cut it to 12.
All right, UCLA will use its first half timeout here with just under a minute.
A terrific rebounder, anticipates the miss, sneaks in there, and finishes with the dunk. Look at his rankings in the league. First in assists. That tells you he's the point guard, Ted,
yes.
right there. Leads the league in assists. 4th in rebounds, 4th in steals. Just impacts the game. I feel like a broken record every time I come here and do a UCLA game, but he impacts the game so many different ways for UCLA.
You know how much I enjoy talking basketball with you. So you know who leads Stanford in assists, don't you?
Dwight Powell.
Dwight Powell, yeah.
That's why he was
He's the point guard.
That's why he was a first-round pick on the power players last week. It's points, rebounds, and assists.
All right, he's going to sit here with UCLA on possession. Stanford has already used a first-half timeout. Don't know if Johnny Dawkins will use another one. Well,
Stanford's got 2 fouls to give, too.
Yeah, exactly. Only the second turnover of the half for UCLA. The Bruins should get the last possession, but you're right, Stanford get disrupted.
Same thing plays out seemingly in every game. You don't turn it over and you guard people, hold them to a lower percentage, you're probably going to win the game. At the last timeout, Stanford was at 38%, and you just mentioned UCLA only 2 turnovers.
And Stanford's already got their game average, 9 turnovers just in the first half. Randall.
Tough shot.
And Eustace will get to the line. So Eustace and Powell have done enough on the offensive boards in the first half to make an impact and keep Stanford, could be within 10 here. State Farm halftime report coming up here in 15 seconds after the UCLA final possession. To look at this Thursday night, busy Thursday. Another game going on along with ours here. Oregon playing Washington at the Heck Ed.
How about these numbers? At the last timeout, UCLA 20-4 points in the paint, and then bench points 15-3. So a couple of the themes that we've been talking about during this first half really have come to light. Stanford's got to get more from their bench in the second half if they're going to come back in this one.
David Ware screens. Anderson goes the other way. And Stanford's going to survive these closing seconds. Robbie Lemons pushes wide. Well, Stanford didn't get it quite as close as they'd like. They didn't let UCLA blow them off either.
Yeah, and I thought UCLA did a really good job defensively in the first half. I thought Stanford a little sloppy with the ball. And then UCLA took advantage of their opportunities when they got them in scoring off those turnovers.
All right, here's Steve Alford now with Yogi.
Coach, your defense does an incredible job creating turnovers. What did you see from them in that first half?
Well, I thought we did a good job of protecting the paint. I thought we needed to do that with the triangle offense they like to run. A lot of it has to do with elbow drives and feeding the post. We got Nostick in foul trouble, which helped. So I thought defensively, I thought we got good shots. We missed some open looks, but I really like the flow of the offense.
And how about your bench, in particular Tony Parker?
Well, Tony's been big for us. You know, Dave's a little under the weather, Trav's a little under the weather, so we need a big night here from Tony, and we're getting it so far.
Thanks a lot. Good luck in the second half. Ted, back to you.
All right, Yogi. So UCLA by 11 here at halftime at Pauley. And the Bruins getting back home, putting up 42 in the first half, more like the typical UCLA offense. All right, stay with us. Mike Yams along to captain things for the State Farm halftime report. Coming up right after this break on the Pac-12 Networks. UCLA up by 11 as we get close to the start of the second half here at Pauley in our State Farm halftime report. Don, you look at a couple of questions UCLA had coming in. 51% shooting, so they're clearly finding things back here at Pauley to their liking. But to pick up on what Steve Alford talked about, they defended the paint a little bit. Well, They defended the paint a lot.
They did. Stanford only shot 36%, and I think for UCLA, that's the given for them. We know they're going to find a way to score points because they're so good offensively, but can they string together stops, which will get them leads? That's what they did in this first half.
Yeah. 9 steals in the first half, 9 by the Bruins. Look at a little recap. Tony Parker, 10 very good minutes.
Yeah, very good minutes, and I think probably his best half of the year. 10 points, 5 rebounds. You mentioned the steals. They're good at that, second in the country at steals per game, but everybody gets into the act for that. And on the other side, I thought Eustace had a really good first half. 12 points, 8 rebounds. They need more from Dwight Powell in the second half. He only had 6 in the first half. He's their second leading scorer. And then Chasen Randall only 5 points. Their leading scorer at 19.5 a game. Let's see if they can get him going here early in the second half.
All right, let's see if we can get some insight into what Johnny Dawkins is thinking. Yogi?
Yeah, it was pretty simple. He said we need to value the ball. When you look at their last 3 games before tonight, fellas, they had under 10 turnovers for the entire game. In the first half tonight against UCLA, they have 11. So it was pretty simple. Value the ball, dominate on the defensive boards, and we can get ourselves back in this ball game a little bit.
And that's why I said give UCLA some credit for their defense, but I didn't think Stanford valued the ball as well as they should have. They were sloppy with some of their passing. And let's see if that improves here in the second half.
Yeah, just do the math. 11 turnovers by Stanford, 9 UCLA steals. That tells you where it was coming from. And credit UCLA, it's second best in the nation in steals. And Stanford's good care of the ball. That was something all the Stanford people were telling me today. Hey, what went right last weekend? They really take care of the ball.
Well, the other thing they're going to have to do now, down 11, is they're going to have to really be good defensively against a really good offensive team in UCLA.
Starting lineups for both. Nastich, only 6 minutes in the first half for Stanford.
Another early shot, quick jumper for UCLA. And you hope that doesn't become a trend for them if you're UCLA. That's how they started the game, allowed Stanford to hang in there. Once they started taking the ball to the rim and moving the ball and making the Stanford defense move was when they got the big lead.
David Ware only played 8 minutes in the first half for UCLA. You heard Steve Alford reference cold/flu bug is not unusual this time of year to hear that about college teams. It's going through his team.
Well, that's why you needed a Tony Parker half like that. Didn't get much from the Wares, understandably so, but Parker came in and played well. Let's see how he reacts in the second half playing with those 2 fouls.
First foul on Powell, and there is UCLA with another steal.
We may have to start checking the record books for steals in a game for UCLA. This continues.
Kyle Anderson. Oh, but Randall loses the rebound.
It's a perfect example of the sloppiness that I was referencing. That's an easy rebound for anybody. Takes his eyes off it, and I'm not sure that'll be put as a turnover for Stanford, but that's definitely a turnover.
And Adams makes them pay.
What a change. That you go from getting the stop going the other way, now you give UCLA free 2 points.
And you're right, Don, whether it's counted in the stat, that was a turnover. And
Absolutely.
Those are 2 points off a turnover.
Yep. UCLA turns around, does the same
thing. Returns it. Now can Stanford make them pay?
Concentration. You want to play with intensity and concentration at all times. And the more games I do and go around not only this conference but watch other conferences, see lapses in concentration by individuals and teams.
Travis Ware with a foul. Is there anything you can point at as a common denominator or a reason?
Guys, I don't think in today's game, and this is a whole conversation if you want to spend the rest of this half talking about it.
It's a playbook topic, what we're saying, right?
Well, I don't think guys get themselves ready to play mentally for the entire 40 minutes. You have to prepare way before the game starts, lock in, get yourself ready to go. And I think because of the way high school basketball is treated with AAU, there's so many games that there's not as much emphasis put on any one game. So these guys never figure out how to prepare for a game mentally.
You're right. That's a long conversation. Yeah. But I will tell you, Don, so you lived through this. I get my feedback from talking to coaches, basically. And I can't tell you how many coaches the last 2 years have told me that very some form of what you just said.
You know what freaks me out is you go and you see a team for the first time when the season starts, and the first words out of every coach's mouth is just trying to get my guys to play hard. It's like, really? Trying to get your guys to play hard.
Yeah. And how many times that as recently as last week, you have a coach telling you that their players, certain players, that all they talk about are their AAU experiences. When you're trying to build a team experience in your college.
Absolutely.
That's an unexpected hurdle. And Nastich saw the lane open up for him, and he took it. And UCLA getting some early fouls here in the half.
And Nastich getting the early fouls in the first half. Let's see if he can have an impact in the second half.
And so Nastich at the line. Travis Ware, by the way, 3 fouls now for UCLA. At halftime, I tried to go over to say hi to Yogi. I could not get anywhere near Yogi. And I knew that
were mobbing him.
I knew Yogi was popular, and somebody tried to tell me that this young man that we just saw there was actually the guy that people were looking at. Every 15 and 16-year-old young lady in the Westwood area was here. I don't believe it, Yogi. I think it was all you, bro.
Yeah, I don't know about that. I think he's been in one more big movie set than I've been on in my entire career, but he was definitely mobbed at the half. I think anyone under the age of 18 who was female found the baseline and made sure they got near Taylor Lawton.
Yogi, if I'm correct, it's the Hunger Games is what he is famous for. Twilight. That's
Twilight.
right. That's right. My kids aren't old enough yet.
You never know in LA. That's what makes this city so great. You know so well about it, Don. It's awesome.
Norman Powell knocks down both for UCLA.
Well, they haven't delivered the blow yet. It's early in this half, but Stanford hanging in there. Can they make a run, though? Down 12. It's doable. But as I said, coming out of halftime, going to have to string together some stops.
And here's what's happening. I'm looking at the faces of players. I would say that we've seen this pattern, Don, and everyone has their opinions on how games are being officiated. I would say the games I've seen, this has been a pattern that I've noticed frequently would be a tighter call in the second half than the first.
I've seen it. You're exactly right. And I'm not sure if that's by design or what the case may be, but I would say most games I've done, it's been called way tighter in the second half than the first.
You saw the reactions of some of the UCLA players. I think they were feeling exactly that. 4 fouls on the Bruins in the half. And that's a good defensive rebound. Didn't secure it totally, but got the possession by Kyle Anderson.
And that was a good defensive possession by UCLA. Contested at the end of the clock. They get the stop. Zone for Stanford.
And again, for Stanford, their challenge has been trying to keep Nastich, big man in the middle, on the floor. He has been foul prone all year, and it's limited minutes for him.
And again, with not a ton of depth, they can't afford to have him off the floor.
Well, Powell charges. Just when you thought Powell was going to rise up and shoot it, he decided to go, and he went too hard and draws the charge.
And it would have been a good shot if he had just kind of stepped into that three, but put it down, and he probably could have pulled up after one dribble as well. But leaves his feet. Nastich steps in there, takes a charge.
So 5 now fouls on UCLA. Well, make that 6 fouls on UCLA. We're not even to the first time out of the half. 6 fouls.
I mean, I don't sense players fouling more this half. It's just being called tighter. That play was off the ball.
Well, it's the offshoot of this is what we hear behind us is the fans don't appreciate this.
No.
There's no entertainment value to this.
Nobody appreciates this. I mean, players want to play.
Another UCLA steal. Anderson protecting the ball well. Anderson felt Anthony Brown all the way down there and kept the ball in his left hand.
But how about the feel to pull up and make the play?
Ooh, and Stanford just misses. Well, they've had about a half a dozen of those that have hung on the rim and fallen out.
Well, not a good look. And Anderson, watch this. Instead of taking it all the way, he pulls up right there. And that's not an easy shot, that little 4 or 5 footer. But he puts it on the front of the rim and it goes in. I mean, this is shocking that we're not even to the under 16 timeout yet, and Stanford is in the bonus. That I don't think I've seen so far this year. Is some of the games that have been called tighter than others, it's never been called this tight in a half.
Well, David Ware has played 11 minutes tonight, has 4 fouls. That's why you see him going off. David Ware has 4 and Travis 3.
May see Juana Bale tonight, who kind of fell out of the rotation once we got to conference play, but they may need him to play some minutes tonight.
UCLA patient. Anderson steps through. Still 10. Powell went about 9 feet in the air to catch that ball.
That's a tough finish, too, to go up that high, come down, and then immediately back up for that little 7-8 foot shot.
Yeah, everybody in the crowd thought that was going to be a sliding traveling call. Randall eventually throws it away, and that gets us to the first time out of the second half.
What you do, it's how you do it, said legendary basketball coach John Wooden at UCLA. I'm Yogi Roth. Welcome back to the UCLA campus. Tonight we got a great game, including one of the 4 finalists for the John Wooden midseason award list. Now, 4 of the players from the Pac-12 conference include Kyle Anderson from UCLA. From Arizona, we got Aaron Gordon, Nick Johnson, and from Oregon, Joseph Young. Now, it's an interesting award, as even though you may not be on the initial 25 players, you can still win it, as March 8th, the final 15 players will be announced, and from them, a winner will be picked.
Thanks, Yogi. That's prestigious, though, to be in the final 25 for that coveted award.
Some of it has to do with team success, but I would say right now Doug McDermott from Creighton has a sizable lead in any and all Player of the Year awards.
There, good save by Jordan Adams. After that fight inside, it is Powell that finally gets to the loose ball for Stanford. Anthony, and look at the hands of Powell. That's Norman Powell. Well, total thievery by Powell. He just wasn't able to get the shot down.
They had numbers. I expected him to kind of give that up.
And Randall got away with a big-time
yes, he did.
shove off there. The 3 officials had a conversation during the timeout. Anderson sees Adams.
That's the brilliance of Anderson right now. Right there at his size, can see over the top of the defense. Not a lot of guards can make that pass because they can't see over the defense. He finds Adams cutting on the baseline.
And Powell, Dwight Powell, rolls through the lane. Well, despite the fouls that UCLA racked up here early in the half, Stanford has not been able to make a dent into the UCLA lead.
But UCLA hasn't pulled away either. It's kind of stayed the same. Something's got to give here. One of these teams, I think, is going to make a run one way or the other. I think Stanford needs to play with a little more pace. When they get stops or turnovers, get the ball down the court. Don't let UCLA set their defense.
Robbie Lemonson off the bench, and again, Stanford is going to play 6, maybe 7 men is all they will go with in the second half unless there are significant foul problems. Everybody's got 2 days off after this.
I was just going to say that. I mean, you got 2 games a week. Sometimes you get into conference play, you just got to suck it up. As Powell with the difficult shot, trying to draw the foul on Parker.
And that was a very good no call. As Powell jumped into the defender there, just trying to force a foul. And still made the shot.
Nice.
Oh, Anderson. Well, there's an award-worthy assist. Anderson to Adams.
He is so good passing the basketball. 2 possessions in a row with really good delivery.
To Powell, let me correct that. And Anthony Brown is blocked by Anderson.
How many ways can one player impact the game?
And Zach LaVine buries the corner 3.
Well, we said a team was going to make a run. Is this the run for UCLA?
Well, it's back to 16, and that is the largest lead of the game, and that forces Johnny Dawkins' hand to stop it for Stanford.
One of the best passing guards in the country finds Adams, and then he gets Powell with a big-time finish.
Started the second half with an 11-point lead. So they've tacked on 5 despite being hampered in the first moments of the half with a bunch of fouls. 2 starters, the Ware brothers, are both seated because of fouls. And UCLA has not let it stop them.
With this second unit back to the zone as usual. LaVine covers so much ground within that zone. Gets out to shooters, guards that foul line area. He's pretty good in the zone.
Robbie Lemons. Now that's Stanford needs. And Lemons has been able to do that in his increased minutes for Stanford. Has knocked down the occasional important three.
As soon as I say that about Levine, he doesn't get to the shooter.
But Don,
Zach.
this will be interesting to watch because this is the five that clicked in the first half for UCLA.
They're capable, and I think the more it goes on, Alford and Levine, being freshmen, will get more comfortable.
Oh, Anderson with another good pass. Won't get an assist on that. Parker to the line. And we'll get another stoppage. Just under 12 to play.
Let's go. Get amped up. Throw your hands down. Come about them handcuffs. If you get caught up, then stand tough. Man up when you think you want to talk about us. Get amped up. Throw your hands up. If you get locked down, come about them handcuffs. If you get caught up, then stand tough. Man up when you think you want to talk about us. Get up, stand up. We about to get crazy. Touch the floor. I don't know what about to see we made it. Too long I waited. Now we building it up.
Yeah, been a lot of happiness here in Pauley Pavilion tonight. UCLA up 13. Anderson could he plays long enough in this second half. Could put a triple-double up there. He's got 10 points, 7 assists, 5 rebounds.
He threatens every night, triple-doubles. And I think the one, if you could pick one stat as to why this game is where it is the 15 turnovers for Stanford. Because we've talked about it. Stanford's talked about it. You know, their 3 wins in conference, they didn't turn it over, took care of the ball, and they just haven't tonight. And give UCLA some credit, but I think some of it is on Stanford just not being sharp offensively.
15 Stanford turnovers. They averaged 8.8 a game coming in, and 12 steals by UCLA. There's Gage, and that's the one weapon that Gage can give Stanford. If he gets hot, he can shoot them back in it.
He can. And again, Stanford not going away. They're still in position to make a run at this thing. Back down to 12, plenty of time to go.
So now Lemons picks up a foul for Stanford. UCLA has not been called for a foul for a while here. They're still at 7. They had those in the first 3 minutes. Stanford now with 3 second-half fouls.
Well, UCLA's been pretty good all year. That's why I think we talked about it so much. You and I have done enough for their games. They're not a high-volume fouling team. So for them to pick up that many quick fouls that early was different for them.
Oh, Levine beat it with a dribble, and Parker flushes.
Parker has just been in the right place at the right time tonight, and his teammates are finding him.
Catch the ball.
Yep, catch it and dunk it.
14 for Parker, but a brilliant play by Levine.
That's the part that we were talking about when I was breaking Levine down earlier. More plays like that, feel for the game, make the right play at the right time. Watch him split the 2 defenders, and instead of trying to force it himself, the drop off to Parker, that's the right play for that moment. I think the more it goes along, as I said, the more he will string together the right play time after time.
Eustace with his 10th rebound tonight for Stanford. He now has 12 and 10. Jason Randall just 1 field goal tonight, coming off a 33-point game.
Similar to the turnovers. Give UCLA some credit, but I don't think he's been as aggressive as he needs to be.
So Robbie Lemons on the cut.
You know,
We'll get to the line.
There's a lot of responsibility, Ted, when you're the leading scorer of a team, and you are game plan for it, and the opposition is going to try and take you out. But if you're going to win games on the road, your leading scorer can't be this non-existent. And I'm not watching a bad shooting night. You know, yes, he is 1 for 8, and that's not great, but I'm not watching a guy that's looking to manufacture some offense. And he needs to recognize that and understand that for his team to win, he's got to score.
Jason Randall there. Dwight Powell was sitting just for about 30 seconds for Stanford. He is back in now, and Eustace has gone out. Johnny Dawkins trying to give his starters, it won't be much rest, just a little breather here as we're coming to the 10-minute mark. Travis Ware is back for UCLA. He has 3. David Ware sitting with 4. And Alford to the line for the Bruins.
Well, they play up on him because he's known as a shooter, but he's proven throughout the course of this year that he can put it on the deck as well. You saw it there.
And a good 45% three-point shooter.
Probably should be a better foul shooter, though, for the type of shooter he is. Only at 67%. You would have thought. And some of that, I think, is getting acclimated as a freshman. You know, a little more stress on those free throws than maybe they were in high school. I would expect his free throw percentage to increase, not only as this year goes on, but as his career moves on.
Well, look at his high school numbers. See what he shot at altitude. Lemons.
He'll take it.
Yeah, he didn't even blink. Stanford will take it too. See if they can clamp at this end of the floor. That's what they need, a couple of stops to Stanford, but UCLA starting to now penetrate and draw fouls, and Adams will get to the line.
Well, trading baskets for Stanford isn't going to work. That's why I said at the start of the half, they got to put together 2, 3, 4 stops in a row and then score at the other end. They're going to get this lead down.
Marcus Allen, a freshman who's in this stretch for Stanford, drew the foul. You're talking about UCLA, Don, and the challenge they had trying to win on the road, especially in Utah, where they didn't get much from their bench, and that's what Stanford is dealing with tonight. They've got a couple of threes in the second half from Lemons and from Gage.
And especially if you don't have your leading scorer going.
Randall does get a foul here. That's what Randall did so well against Washington last weekend. And that's now 4 fouls on Travis Ware.
Well, on the switch, Travis Ware winds up on Randall, and he just puts his head down. But that's what I'm talking about. Try and manufacture something. He was going to pass that out, but Randall's got to be more aggressive.
There's a 1-and-1. That's the last 1-and-1 Stanford will face in the second half. And now Travis Ware will go back down to the bench. Kyle Anderson in.
I'm glad you mentioned that, because if I'm Stanford now, speaking of being aggressive, I'm putting my head down and putting the pressure on the UCLA defense the rest of this half. If I know, especially if it's being called this tight, I can get 2 free throws every trip. Wonder if that's something Johnny Dawkins will talk about at the next timeout. Guys, let's drive it and try and get to that foul line.
Alford with a setup. And the ball will come back to who? Going to come back to Stanford. Steve Alford protesting, but it'll be Stanford ball. And now Stanford can do something they haven't done. I'm not sure if they've been under 10 at all in the second half.
No. I'm pretty sure they haven't.
Dwight Powell takes it right at Tony Parker. That'll be the 3rd foul on Parker. So Dwight Powell will go to the line, and he will have a chance to get Stanford within 9. And the UCLA foul situation is real.
Yeah.
Both Wares have 4 and Parker 3.
It's real, and I wonder, as I just said, will Stanford recognize it and really put even more pressure on them? Because that's the thing. Put your head down, drive it. That time they posted up Powell. Guys don't want to foul, so it's probably easier to score. But if they do foul, you're on the line for 2 shots.
Dwight Powell's missed 3 foul shots in the second half. And that's, again, those are little small things, but Stanford can't afford those. They don't have the margin.
He's a 64%er, so not that surprising.
Eustace at the table to check back for Stanford. We're heading towards a timeout zone. Norman Powell on the floor for the Bruins. And Parker finishes.
He has been really good tonight. And Alford on the drive just puts it up on the rim, and Parker up over the rim to put that one back.
So if I were coaching here, this is a scary thought. This is what I'd be doing. I'd be going right. I'd go at Parker every time.
Yep.
You got to try to get him off the floor.
Get him off the floor, and again, get to the foul line. Tony Parker came with the energy starting in the first half, and he's trying to help UCLA hold off this Stanford group. UCLA's up 12.
The incomparable history of UCLA basketball, featuring the man who rises above all with the most points in Maroon history, Don McClain.
What you can't see there, Ted, is the mullet in the back, the long hair in the back.
Do you know how much they paid the phone hog to chop that out, Don? Or did you pay
by
him?
the arm.
Or did you pay him?
There you go.
It's still, I mean, look, you did it here, but I mean, even for someone like myself who grew up watching games here, when Booker Turner reffed every single game ever played on this floor.
Booker T, my man.
Back in the great days when Notre Dame and UCLA played twice a year every year, once in each place. Yep. And my friend Digger Phelps always used to talk about it. He knew. He said, I have an appointment with Booker on January 23rd or whatever. I'm going to see Booker at Pauley. He knew every year. But anyways, it never gets old.
I'll tell you
to come in here and see the history and the incredible players that have graced this court.
Obviously, it was part of my career here, but I miss the days of Louisville coming in here, Notre Dame, those home and homes you had every year, because they were monster games.
Twice a year. Isn't that amazing?
Yeah, they're great conference games, obviously, but those non-con big games were really special.
And just last weekend, they honored Coach Phelps, was inducted into a Ring of Honor at Notre Dame on the 40th anniversary of a somewhat significant game in the history of both schools, both Notre Dame and UCLA.
88 straight, right?
And there were, and I'm going to tell you something. I know I'm on the Pac-12 networks, but I went to another school, and there are hundreds of young men like me who went to Notre Dame and may have been swayed by that game.
Really?
My senior year of high school. And I'm serious, when you saw that game on television, back in the day when that game registered, when everybody watched it, Parker dunks, and to understand the magnitude of beating a team like UCLA and ending an 88-game streak, it did influence a lot of young guys of my class to go to Notre Dame.
Stanford has no answer for Tony Parker tonight. 18 points, 6 rebounds. Would be surprised if UCLA didn't continue to go into him. Which I'm surprised, because you got Eustis and Powell on the floor. It's not like he's beating up on the second unit of Stanford.
So Powell hits the facing shot, and again, we're in this. It's just basically been a 10 to 14-point window that this entire second half has been played.
And I'm sure UCLA be fine with bleeding this thing out, trading baskets the rest of the way and cruise on in. Stanford's got to dig in.
And Levine sets up Parker again. Parker now with 20 points.
Probably got a foul there too, no call.
And there was a big-time bump, and Bryce Alford is going to get called. Randall is trying to play with that edge that Stanford probably would like. He went in and created that.
I said earlier, Parker's just been in the right place at the right time, and give him a lot of credit, but he has been set. He has been set up. He's our Motel 6 man of the game tonight. He has been set up by his UCLA teammates all night. But he's been ready to catch and go up strong and finish.
Parker 1 point shy of his career high. Randall at the line. Randall just basically ran into Bryce Alford. with a little bit of, it looked like a little bit of anger, and got the foul called. Made the shots.
I would be putting pressure on the UCLA defense with the drive. You're in the double bonus. UCLA's got some real foul trouble. Make them guard you.
And Powell's shot contested. Nastich got a piece. Can Randall? Randall's going in alone, and it rimmed out.
Did you see that? Alford backed away.
And Levine doesn't take any chances.
What would a UCLA home game be this year without a Levine breakaway dunk?
That ball's going to be tipped out of bounds and back to UCLA. And there is where a game can swing, because here's an easy layup that's going to cut it to 8. It rims out, and this happens at the other end.
But guess who made the pass, too? Kyle Anderson right on the money. Levine running. Because of his superior athleticism, he is out in front of everybody. UCLA is lethal in the open court, especially when Levine's on the court.
It's small little swings, and that 5-second swing there where Randall goes in, that's a layup that's going to cut it to 8, give Stanford a little momentum, and within 3 seconds it's the other way for a dunk and a 12-point game.
You saw what happened on that play as well. Alford basically got out of the way because he didn't want to foul him. And you're right, you got to finish that play, but that's why I keep saying, Stanford, put it on the deck, put the pressure on UCLA's defense, because they are going to either get out of the way and let you score, or you're shooting 2 free throws.
So Bryce Alford makes both. He has 6. Anthony Brown has been out for a while for Stanford. He'll come back in. Lemons sits. And so Stanford back now to its starting 5 here with just over 5 to play. Anderson deflects another one out of bounds. By the way, I got corrected, which, as my wife would be willing to tell you, is not an unusual thing. But I did get corrected. And
it's at your house, too?
Yeah. Is that we're talking in the first half about Stanford not having many guys leave early. The Lopez twins did only play 2 years. I lost track of time. They're the only ones, though. And Adams knocks it down.
That may have been it, unless Stanford's got something I haven't seen yet.
There's a tip that goes for Nastich. But UCLA, for a moment there, had the biggest lead of the game. And now the Bruins going to use some clock. So what we're referencing, Stanford has not had very many players who've left way early for the pros. Every significant player they've had in their program has played at least 3 years there, except for the Lopez twins.
And you knew those 2 big old boys were NBA players from the minute they stepped on campus.
And Randall knocks it down for 2. Just the second field goal made for Chasen Randall. He has 11 points. And Steve Alford is going to take a timeout here. Not yet to the 4-minute zone, but this will be a UCLA timeout with the Bruins at a 13-point lead. UCLA trying to win its 15th, trying to get to 4-2 in the conference. And let's look at our Quicken Loans amazing play of the game.
Which is the amazing play, the pass or the finish? Every time Levine gets out in front of everybody in the stands here at Pauley Pavilion gets out of their seat. So they know they're going to see something special.
Yeah. That's an underrated. I mean, we talk about passing, Don, in basketball. We always think about the slick bounce pass or the quick, dump down low. Maybe sometimes it's a cross-court skip pass. You don't think about that. Was a 3/4 court pass thrown by Kyle Anderson right on the money.
Didn't break stride. And so like a quarterback, you got to lead them a little bit so they can run underneath it. Because if he slows down, maybe the defender catches him. But he put it right on the money and he threw it down.
Yogi?
Yeah, I had a chance to talk to Coach Alford before the game, and he said, look, our goal is to wear out Stanford in transition, but if they slow us down, let's run our offense. And I think we've seen tonight Tony Parker be that guy in the half-court offense that all of a sudden showcases UCLA's ability to play two different styles of basketball. And you know, Don, as we get going here into February, you're going to have to be able to do that.
Well, and I think one other thing, too, which we haven't talked much about, is Stanford hasn't been able to keep people in front tonight. So what's happened is UCLA's beat them off the dribble, and then the end result is the dump off to Tony Parker, and he's done a really good job of finishing plays. And I think when Stanford looks at the film tomorrow, they'll say we didn't do a good enough job of keeping people in front of us.
And this is going to be a game if UCLA can hang on to this 13-point lead. They've not gotten much from either of the Wares tonight. And Norman Powell, well, there's a shot that he hopes will start to turn things, that part of his game around.
But they have so many options on the offensive end, and that's what makes them so hard to guard, is that, you know, Adams can shoot it, Powell can shoot it, Levine. You got so many options on the offensive end.
And we're talking about the experience for Stanford with their team, and here's, you know, both of the Wares are fifth-year players, started a lot of games here, and tonight it's because they haven't been able to contribute as much. So now you get Parker and Alford and Levine, a sophomore and two freshmen that have. And as a result, UCLA is looking good. 20 points tonight for Tony Parker, one shy of his single game scoring high, 6 rebounds as well, just an integral part. Just the presence inside. He has been the beneficiary of a lot of good play by people like Kyle Anderson.
He really has, but you know what? Still got to catch and finish. And 8 of 13 from the floor, 4 of 6 from the line in just 24 minutes. So this could be the start of even more minutes for him. Came in averaging about just a hair over 19 minutes a game. If they can get, obviously he's not going to have 20 every night, but if they can get production from him in the activity that he had tonight, I bet you he starts to play more minutes. Well, this sets up a good game Sunday as well. UCLA and Cal for second place in the conference.
Anderson with 11 points, 10 assists, 6 rebounds, and no turnovers.
That rebounding number's light for him.
Randall gets to the line, and no turnovers. UCLA has only 5 turnovers tonight. Stanford has 18.
There's the difference in the game right there. I mean, the field goal percentage, there's some discrepancy there. But if you have an 18-5 turnover differential, I would say 99% of the time the team with 5 is going to win the game. Because I'll tell you what, Stanford had 14 offensive rebounds tonight and still never really made it close.
As we're down under 3 minutes, and I'm looking at Parker's log, this is going to be the most minutes Parker has played in a game since November. Played 34 minutes way back the second game of the year against Oakland on this floor.
And if I'm not mistaken, Travis Ware still wasn't playing yet.
Yes, it's exactly that same thing. And they played 26 against Chattanooga. Those were both before Travis returned. So this is going to be the most minutes for Parker in the UCLA 8-man rotation.
Again, though, for himself and confidence-wise, this is great for him. But I think for the coaching staff, does this warrant more minutes? You know, the Wares have gotten more minutes than Parker. Does that start to even itself out?
It'll be a 5 o'clock game here on Sunday for UCLA and Cal. Stanford will play at USC. They'll be at the Galen Center also Sunday. We'll be there for that game at 2 p.m. here on the Pac-12 networks.
Can USC put it together back-to-back games? Defensively, the first 5 games of the year in conference, they weren't very good, but they were good last night against Cal, held them under 40% shooting.
And we've got our post-game show coming up with Mike Yam, Ernie Kent, Dan Dickow in our Pac-12 Network studio to wrap up all of the night's play. Right after we're finished here at Pauley. Anthony Brown. That has been the one edge Stanford's had tonight. You talked about they've had some offensive rebounds. Stanford has made some threes tonight. That's been probably the best part of their offense.
I mean, everything else in their stat line looks okay, except for the 18 turnovers.
Yeah. That's the 9th three they've made tonight. 9 out of 18.
Yeah. Take that all day, 50%. UCLA with 14 steals, but Tony Parker has been at the rim all night and finishing with 2 hands all night. This was one of the few post-ups he actually had where he had to do something with it. Most of them have been just catch and finish. They give the UCLA guards credit, but he deserves a lot of the credit for being active, making himself available, and finishing the plays.
Tony Parker from Atlanta. Both he and Jordan Adams made the trip to come out to play their ball here.
He'll get to deal with Richard Solomon, David Kravish, and company on Sunday.
Well, Parker's got a new career high.
One more time. That's one thing, and we haven't been here for a while, Ted, to do a game, but that's one thing I know we talked a lot about early in the season was how unselfish this UCLA team is, and it's really been on display tonight. That's their 23rd assist of the game. And as we've been talking about, Parker been the recipient of a lot of those.
Yeah, on 32 baskets. That's a great point. Randall scores it for Stanford. And Randall lost it inside. Another seeming layup. And Stanford can't finish it. Frustration written all over Johnny Dawkins' face. You understand how many of those type of baskets Stanford hasn't been able to put down tonight.
And it certainly hasn't been chasing Randall's night.
And UCLA took a timeout prior to that ball being jarred. 94 seconds of game time. So UCLA, what appears to be a winning night for UCLA, and Taylor Lautner looks like he's going to pitch a complete game.
Yeah,
good for him.
And why is there only girls left in the student section? They're not leaving till he leaves.
Yeah. You should follow his car out. You'll get out of Westwood fast. We've got women's hoops featuring UCLA and Stanford coming up tomorrow night here in the Pac-12 networks. Well, here's a streak UCLA would like to break very much. But Tara Vanderveer is a good power again. Shanae leading the way at Stanford, 8 p.m. tomorrow night.
Stanford's probably got a streak like that against everybody in the Pac-12, right?
Fair point. It's one of the great assets, I think, of basketball is now Taylor Lautner's getting the car ready. He's not getting the car's being readied for him. We were at Stanford last week. Ernie Kent and I were there doing the Stanford game, and Tara Vanderveer came to the Stanford shoot-around and specifically walked over to wish Johnny Dawkins well and give him a little boost. And
she has had tremendous success.
And I mean, you think about it, because UCLA, of course, this program's history, we all know. Stanford was a school with almost no basketball history in either. And of course, women didn't start playing until the 70s as a college sport. But and they were hired right around the same time. Mike Montgomery and Tara Vanderveer in the mid-'80s. I think they may have been hired within a year of each other there. And what they both built and what Tara continues to develop at Stanford in both women's and men's basketball is extraordinary at a school that didn't have a history.
Yeah. Well, if you're Stanford and you're talking about getting into the NCAA tournament,
well, that's going to make
timeout.
I wasn't sure what. It's Deldre Carr on the call. Mike Reed, lead official, in to try to decipher this. Stanford has one timeout remaining.
Well,
I'm not sure what the call is here.
Carr called timeout, but nobody for UCLA called timeout.
Okay.
So now it's a jump ball situation, and it's Stanford ball.
Yeah, held ball. Okay, I see.
Wow.
UCLA thought they had called a timeout. The officials say no timeout.
Well, the official thought that they had called timeout.
Okay.
So he called timeout, but there was no timeout called by UCLA.
All right, so the alternate possession goes to Stanford in a minute 22. Oh, that good setup for the open three. Well, they get two out of it. Well, Powell's put back, and Stanford will take their final timeout. Well, there's another sign of the kind of night it has been for Chase and Rendell. It is a perfect setup for the corner three.
Wide open. Yep. But still not under 10. You know, it's still a 10-point game for UCLA. They just got to execute here the last 118.
Well, you referenced it already. UCLA has Cal here on Sunday, then they'll take the Oregon trip next weekend. And the USC game will also be a road game. That's going to be at the Galen Center.
If I'm not mistaken, that Oregon trip is a Thursday-Sunday as well. Makes it a little more difficult, and then they come back against USC. Just getting started here in the Pac-12 conference race, but it seems like the games, every game is important.
And I think the importance now, unless there's just a momentous event here in the last minute 18, is going to be Stanford Sunday. We'll see them play at Galen Center, and as you said, Don, making the tournament for Stanford, which is their stated goal, and that's from the athletic department down. That's the point. Make the tournament. They haven't been. Well, Johnny Dawkins era there. Road sweeps are not going to get you there, and that's where we'll highlight the Sunday significance for Stanford.
Well, and I said earlier, their RPI at 55. This certainly isn't a bad loss here at UCLA, but you're right. If they follow it up with a loss at USC, that could be really damaging.
Remember, Stanford does get Arizona at home next week. And, of course, that's going to be the biggest chance for every Pac-12 team to boost their numbers. If they can take Arizona down, as challenging as that is. But that's, of course, the risk in that is that's why you can't afford to lose road games when you're in the Stanford spot.
Well, you just can't have the games that you're supposed to win.
Right.
You know, like losing at home to Cal. Listen, Cal's a good team, but you're at home, you should probably win that game. And Stanford couldn't get that done. So now you got to make up ground elsewhere, which means you probably have to rise up and win a road game that you're not supposed to win.
And they did that already at Eugene. They took care of home court last weekend at Stanford, but that's why, again, I think Sunday now will shape up as being a very important Stanford basketball game.
Extra day for Stanford as well. 2 days off, and then you got the Trojans.
We'll have that for you. Mentioned Sunday, 2 o'clock. Saturday we'll be in Tempe for what's an interesting Colorado-Arizona State game. That'll be a 5 o'clock game, or 4 p.m., Pacific time.
Arizona State, another team.
Can I petition Arizona to get on Pacific time, please? Can I please do that?
They are half the year.
I know. As the whole state, the state of Arizona does not change clocks, so they fall into the same time as Colorado and Utah right now. It just confuses me. Come on. I'm simple.
If you look at the standings again, UCLA, I mentioned earlier, they beat Cal on Sunday. Will have sole possession of second place.
And they've got a good one going in Seattle. 4-point lead for Washington over Oregon with a minute 20 to go. And that's, if Oregon does not win, I mean, that's
5 in a row.
It's a head shaker. It's more than a head shaker. That's kind of stunning. When you see Oregon play and you saw the talent, you couldn't fathom they'd have this kind of stretch in conference play.
Ted, 2 weeks ago, they were the number 10 team in the country. 2.5 weeks ago. I mean, that's shocking to go from the number 10 team in the country to losing 5 games in a row.
Of course, Mike Yam and Ernie Kent, Dan Dickow will be along in our studios. They'll have the final on that game and the recap of this Thursday night, 4 conference games. 2 of them you've seen here with Arizona State winning and UCLA holding its home court with some flair in the closing seconds. There was a little period of time when Stanford had the magic on this court. They won, I believe, 4 straight years here at Pauley. It would have been the early 2000s, but this will be the 9th consecutive year in this conference battle that UCLA has won it at Pauley. And they do it by 17, and UCLA opened it up midway through the first half. 11-point lead at the halftime, and they never let Stanford push in the second.
Never looked back. Stanford turned it over too many times, but the UCLA defense was pretty sharp, and a big contribution from Tony Parker tonight for UCLA.
And a high-scoring UCLA team adds to that number, 91 on the board in a conference game tonight. With Yogi Roth, Don McClain, Ted Robinson, we thank you for joining us for our men's hoops doubleheader here on Pac-12 Networks. The whole night gets recapped. Mike Yam and company in our studio coming up other side on the Pac-12 Networks.